As much as I have tried to enjoy the last little drops of summer, I'm feeling the influence of fall, and I'm ready for all those fall vibes in my books, in my coffee, and especially in my shows and movies. So today I have come up with an absolutely comprehensive and exhaustive list of every fall movie, show, special on every single streaming service that I can. If I miss something, let me know in the comments and recommend it to somebody else. Also, please feel free to subscribe just in case I make any other fall content, which I probably will. Let's start with Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus doesn't have a ton of like specifically fall items, but we're starting with them because there's a limited list here and a couple that are very vibesy, okay? And this one I have not watched, but The Greatest Beer Run Ever is a period piece set during the Vietnam War that's based on a true story of a young man who went undrafted in the Vietnam War, going overseas to deliver beers to his best buddies from his hometown. Zac Efron plays the lead in this film. I've always wanted to watch this one. I feel like there's something very wholesome about the plot of the film, and I'd really love to give it a watch this fall. Then for the shows, you guys know I'm never gonna miss an opportunity to talk about Dickinson. Dickinson is a ahistorical reimagining of the life of Emily Dickinson. It has some magical realism elements, and it stars my favorite, my birthday twin, Haley Steinfeld. I absolutely love this series. The costuming is amazing. The music choices are amazing. If you're a fan of Bridgerton, this one is more of an acquired taste than Bridgerton. It doesn't necessarily have the same universal girly tropes, but if you're a fan of poetry, if you're wanting to read some more intense reading, put away the summer rom-coms and move forward, I think Dickinson would kind of pair well with that. And it thematically, I think, fits this time of year perfectly. Then we have Lessons in Chemistry, which is nominated for Emmys this year. Brie Larson, this is the role she was born to play. I still have not finished this series because the main character, Elizabeth Zott, has a cooking series, a cooking show. It feels that fall time when you're like cooking more, you're baking more, you're at home with loved ones, and how much food kind of brings people together. So I highly recommend giving this series a watch. It's only in its first season. I think it's gonna have a second season, but it's only in that first season now. So you can binge it. This would be a quick, great, fun binge. Then we have Killing Jacob. This is for my murder mystery gals. It's a little bit darker in tone, to be completely honest. Definitely for mature viewers here, but it stars the one and the only Chris Evans as a father and a district attorney whose son becomes the main suspect in a murder trial. Waffling that this father does to want to protect his son and assume that he is innocent. However, the more evidence mounts, what is he willing to do to protect his son? Should his son actually go away for this crime? Did he even commit it? That's all explored. It's really great. It's just one season, limited series, excellent. It takes place in like dreary northern New England type area of the US. Definitely not a cozy mystery, but a mystery nonetheless. And then the last one is Silo. I'm recommending this not only because I think the dystopian, again, color palette of being like indoors matched with their underground silo, that might be a little bit of a reach, but the second season is coming out in November, so now is a great time to binge this series. It follows Rebecca Ferguson's character, who is starting to realize that the entire silo might not know the full truth about why they're there and what is on the surface. This is kind of the more advanced, mature drama version of Fallout. If Fallout is kind of a summer, Silo is an autumn, if that makes sense. Moving on to Netflix. Because Netflix is such a well-known platform, we have got a couple of titles that I'm going to consider classics. They don't fit as much as some of the classics we'll get to with Disney Plus. These are titles that I think everybody knows are uniquely Netflix, that either went viral, were massively critically acclaimed, and these I'm not going to talk as much about because I think you should kind of know what they are. These are going to be titles like Wednesday, Riverdale, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor, Queen's Gambit, and Stranger Things. Like most of these, you probably know the general plots of. Stranger Things is the most, I think, maybe kid-friendly of all of these and the least scary. Well, I guess Queen's Gambit's not really scary, but it's definitely not kid-friendly. But I think this is kind of the category of like, I want something that's spooky vibes, but isn't necessarily gory or horrible. The only exception to this that I will exclude is I haven't seen The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and I only watched one episode of The Haunting of Hill House because I am a scaredy cat, and those long hallway shots just got me every time. I couldn't do it. Okay, guys, I did it once for an assignment for a class, and that was all you're gonna get out of me. But I think these are kind of all in that. You probably know what they are, or you know somebody who's a big fan of one of these at one point or another, and maybe you've even watched most of these. Now we're gonna move on to the shows. I don't have any movies for Netflix. In terms of the shows, we've got a lot of binging to do here. The biggest binge that I think is exclusive for this holiday season. I think it was such a smart pickup for Netflix, is the AMC Plus shows that are kind of in the Anne Rice book based on realm. We've got Interview with a Vampire, Mayfair Witches, and A Discovery of Witches. Personally, haven't watched any of these, but I know a lot of people who are really excited that these have dropped just in time for the fall vibes, and I've really enjoyed specifically Interview with the Vampire and A Discovery of Witches. These are great for my literary dark academia girlies who want a little supernatural sprinkle in their binging. To kind of change gears on that, we've got A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is based on one of my personal favorite thriller novels. Yes, it's YA, but I've heard really great things about the series and how it's adapted, and personally, this feels like such a genuine story of a young girl who is trying to solve a true crime case that she believes was prosecuted incorrectly in her hometown, involving people she goes to high school with. Then a show cancellation I will simply never be over to continue in that true crime realm is Mindhunter. Okay, Mindhunter is based on, in the 1980s, the CIA started working on profiling serial killers and figuring out what are the psychological patterns that create a person that is capable of such evil, and Mindhunter follows two of those CIA agents in the first season. There's a FBI or CIA. What's awesome about the show, but makes it also kind of chilling, most of the interviews that they are conducting are based on real transcripts that the real FBI/CIA agents recorded from their meetings with these serial killers. Obviously, there is some fictionalization that happens here, but the story overall is really, really incredible. And again, the caliber of storytelling and acting and everything that this show has to offer is so incredible that it actually pains me every time I think about the fact that it did not get a third season. And most importantly, in my opinion, Mindhunter brought us the absolutely incredible performance of Jonathan Groff as Holden Ford, the person kind of at the center of all of this, who is this young detective interviewer that really wants to, oh, they were FBI. So embarrassing. He is absolutely incredible in this role, like genuinely so good, because you see how these interviews and this close contact with the most horrible parts of humanity really affect a person and get in their head and start to change who they are. Absolutely incredible. You have to watch this series at some point. Please, I beg you. And we've got some absolute classics here that, to be honest, I haven't seen. We've got Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is like the ultimate, the poster child for fall television, and this year I think is finally going to be the year that I dip my toes and watch some of it. I have a general understanding of the series plot points, who Lorelai and Rory are, and who their respective love interests are, and who the general fandom seems to prefer over other people. I'm Team Jess, okay? I can tell you that already. Milo Ventimiglia, I love him, okay? And the reason I love him is because of This Is Us. This Is Us is one of my favorite shows of all time. It is the highest caliber of network television that we have gotten in the last, I would argue, potentially 10 years. This Is Us is the interconnected story of a singular family named the Pearsons and their life through different decades. The show is absolutely incredible. The storytelling, the topical nature of it, but also the universality of This Is Us. Every time you watch an episode, you see something that you relate to and feel without it being like a cringy, like, oh, ha ha, my husband also throws his socks on the floor when they're dirty rather than putting them in the laundry bin. Like, not like that type of like Instagram relatability, genuine like human experiences, absolutely incredible storytelling, writing, acting. The other great thing about this show is I have two really great podcasts to go along with it. Not only the This Is Us 2 podcast by Miriam Blake Media that I listened to all of college. It was such a safe space for me. I loved that podcast so dearly. But very recently, Mandy Moore, Sterling K. Brown, and Chris Sullivan, who respectively play Rebecca, Randall, and Toby, started a rewatch podcast. And they are obviously the stars of the show, so they have so much great inside knowledge, and also the things that have happened to them that kind of reflect the show, that have happened to them since the show has ended. So good. And let me tell you that this show has such a satisfying finale. So it's 6 seasons, but they had the ending plotted and planned from the beginning. And if you're a fan of Crazy Stupid Love, same writer, guys. Also same writer that wrote Tangled. Crazy, I know. Dan Fogelman is his name. He's incredible. I love him. You're gonna love this show too. Then some other random kind of like fantasy supernatural stuff, because I know that my book girlies, this is the time that we crack open the fantasy books on our TBR. The number one that I want to recommend is Shadow and Bone. Listen, is the series perfect? No. Am I still disappointed that I got canceled? Absolutely. Casting of Ben Barnes as the Darkling will never not be perfect, okay? And I love the entire casting of the Crows, and honestly, all the other casting in the show. Like, that's exactly how I envision the characters in the book. Shadow and Bone, if you're not familiar, is based on a trilogy series that then had a duology kind of spin-off in the same world, and then a more direct sequel duology that all revolve these characters visually in terms of casting of characters, the costume design, and the world design. This is one of the most accurate, I think, book to screen adaptations I've seen. There's a lot in season 1 with the Crow characters, and in season 2 with kind of the merging of the two storylines that gets a little bit messy and, again, not faithful to the books, and that's why I think it's a shame that the series was canceled, because I think they knew where they were going in a third or future seasons. However, it's a really fun watch. And then again, if you're wanting to kind of dip your toe into that fantasy realm, Supernatural. I've never watched the whole thing, but I know it has a huge, massive following online and has since the Super Hulock days of Tumblr. This show follows brothers Dean and Sam as they investigate kind of the supernatural elements of the world. Moving on to Peacock really quickly. There wasn't a ton that I found on Peacock, but 2 movies in particular that, again, for scaredy cats like me, fit the sort of horror, thriller, psychological edge of your seat realm. And those are going to be Cabin in the Woods, which is something that I think is such a smart movie. I watched it on Halloween last year. It plays a lot with horror tropes. I really like it. Also, the cast is really fun in this one, so I'd give it a watch. And then we've got some really fun vampire titles on Peacock. Vampire Diaries is available here. It's also available on HBO Max. Vampire Diaries, the best way I can describe it is it's like the ultimate teen vampire drama that's like way too serious and a little bit too melodramatic, but really fun at the same time. For people of my age, like older Gen Z, this is definitely a staple. You need to watch at least enough of Vampire Diaries to know whether you're Team Stefan or Team Damon, okay? And that's my opinion on that. We've got the Vampire Academy TV series, which I have never watched. I've seen the Vampire Academy movie, which is going to be on Prime Video. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this series, again, is like a childhood staple of mine, and so I feel like I needed to include it here. Moving on to Prime Video, we do have the Vampire Academy movie here. Is it great? No. Did we need a TV show redo of it? Absolutely not, because the movie is very campy and very unserious, and for that reason, I really enjoyed it. And then we've also got Lisa Frankenstein, which I haven't watched, and I missed it earlier this year, but it's a fun 80s retelling of the like Bride of Frankenstein / Taking the Frankenstein story, and it stars Catherine Newton and Cole Sprouse. So this one's one I kind of want to give a watch whenever I've got a free moment this fall. And then shows, you guys knew this was coming. You had to know this was coming. My Lady Jane. My Lady Jane is an ahistorical retelling of the story of Jane Grey, a woman in Tudor times who found herself becoming heir to the throne after unfortunate events happened with the king. Yet in this retelling, there are individuals who can transform from human to animal. They're called Ethians, and they are hated by the monarchy. And Jane finds herself in a situation where she's needing to change these division laws that divide the human verities from the animal transforming Ethians. It is so good. It has an enemies to lovers plot line. It has so much tension and steaminess, and the actual plot is really freaking good. And you have a narrator that is kind of giving you this omniscient comedic telling of what is happening. It is simply so good. Okay, everything about the show I love. There's not a single thing about it that I don't love. The costumes are brilliant, the settings are amazing, the fantasy element is hilarious, there's modern music that's popped in this. I just simply have not stopped thinking about the show since it got on my radar, and I really need you to watch it, because despite the fact that it, yes, unfortunately, I don't like to admit this out loud, but it was canceled. As of now, there's not going to be a second season on Amazon, but I'm begging you to please go watch this for my sake, because I don't think I'll ever get season 3 of Mindhunter, but I do think there's a chance that somebody else could pick up My Lady Jane for season 2 if it gets enough people to watch it, and also go sign the petition. I need more of this show. Please, it's so good. Please, it's so good. And I think it hit in some places that Bridgerton did not. That's all I'm gonna say. That was one I was really looking forward to talking about. Then we've got Teen Wolf. Again, a classic, a staple for young millennials, older Gen Z. I feel like I grew up knowing about the show and also being obsessed with Dylan O'Brien, of course. Then we've got Grimm, which, keeping in lieu with the fantasy elements, Grimm is Once Upon a Time meets Supernatural. Put them together, you've got the fairy tale retellings of the Brothers Grimm stories, which is where the show gets its name, with kind of the more modern police procedural elements and mystery and like vigilantiness that Supernatural has. I feel like the way I'm talking about the shows makes sense if you've seen all of them, but if you don't really know one of them, it probably sounds like I'm just pulling things out of my butt. It's definitely more intense than something like Once Upon a Time, but I think again, it's in that same vein of storytelling as like a Supernatural, I think at least. Next up, we have Max, formerly known as HBO Max. May she rest in peace. We've got the Harry Potter series, which is probably the most perfect fall to winter movie marathon binge that you can do. Do I think that the Harry Potter movies fit a little bit more into Christmas for me personally than Halloween or fall? Yes, but they're about witches and wizards. I love them, okay? What more can I say about Harry Potter? Then we've also got Beetlejuice on Max. Beetlejuice, the sequel is coming out on the 6th. I'm very excited not only to see the sequel, but probably to introduce my husband who has never seen Beetlejuice. If you are not a fan of Tim Burton's claymation stuff, you're not alone, but this brings that Tim Burton charm to live action that I think for me personally is less terrifying than the claymation. Michael Keaton here delivers such an iconic performance, and in the original, I love Alec Baldwin, Catherine O'Hara, and Winona Ryder's. I love all of their performances. And then we have The Wizard of Oz, which you might be like, why is that a fall movie? But for me, I grew up watching this film around Thanksgiving time, so for me, it is a Thanksgiving movie. And I know that that does not apply to the plot of The Wizard of Oz at all, but I don't know why. It just feels like a Thanksgiving movie, and you can't tell me otherwise. And I don't feel like I really need to explain what The Wizard of Oz is, so we're gonna move on. And then getting into shows. Pretty Little Liars. Once again, I feel like these are all the like hugely popular teen late 2000s shows that are making it onto this fall list, because why did supernatural stuff and or murder mysteries really have teens in the late 2000s in a chokehold? Like, please explain that to me. But Pretty Little Liars is here, as well as Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. And then we've got, of course, the entire Game of Thrones universe exists on Max. We've got the 8 seasons of Game of Thrones, and then we've got House of the Dragon, the 2 seasons. Obviously, I would recommend you start with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, I think it would be a great fall binge because you're probably going to be cozied up inside, eating some baked goods, maybe doing a little bit of craft. You can binge the show and really enjoy maybe some slower episodes. I don't ever want to hate on Game of Thrones, but there are some episodes that are a little bit slower. There's a lot of walking and a lot of talking and a lot of people get in places that happens in Game of Thrones, and so I feel like this is the perfect show to kind of cozy up, maybe bring out your Nintendo Switch, have a little something else going on, and enjoy watching it, or maybe even rewatching it if you've watched it a long time ago. And then House of the Dragon, the 2nd season was a little bit of a letdown. I've talked about that at length on this channel, but I still think the show is really great, and of course for Game of Thrones fans, there's going to be a lot to love here. We've also got Vampire Diaries here, which I already talked about in the Peacock section, but it's also available on Max in case you have Max too. And then the number one fall show for me always, like Gilmore Girls, move out of the way, I'm so sorry, always going to be Friends. And obviously Friends spans the entire year, but for me Friends is the fall time because it's when I'm around family the most, it's when I want the most comfort watch things, and Friends and all of the Thanksgiving episodes. The fact that Friends has a Thanksgiving episode for every single season, to me, firmly sets it as a fall show. Moving on to Hulu. Hulu had surprisingly a lot. Like, I will say, if you are looking for one service to have for the fall time to watch all of your Halloween stuff and all of your like favorite shows, I would say Hulu or Disney Plus would be the two. And the beauty is you could get them bundled. This is not a promotion. I wish it was, but like you could. For Hulu specifically, for movies, we have Little Women. Little Women is of course a classic novel, but I'm specifically talking about the Greta Gerwig 2019 adaptation. It is so perfect. The color grading of this film feels so incredibly fall to me, and the story is centered around Christmas, but kind of the events leading up to Christmas, and so I think Little Woman is perfect to watch in fall if you, for some reason, have never. And then a movie I've actually never seen, but have heard a lot about the book, is The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. The film stars Lucy Hale. I personally love watching Lucy Hale in anything. This movie follows a man who owns a bookshop who's kind of down on his luck in his life in the New England area of the US and kind of falls in love with life again. It sounds like a really cozy read, and also I'm assuming the movie has the same tone, so I don't know exactly all that it's about. And then another one that, again, for some reason, there's something just about it, the fact that it's based on a book, probably, but The Hating Game, another Lucy Hale title. I'm adding this last minute. This is a last minute addition. If you're looking for a rom-com that you've never seen before, this is a good one. They have really great chemistry, and there are some parts of it that are a little cringy, like the fact that he calls her shortcake, but it's also kind of cute the more you watch it. So that's a fun one. Then we've got Sweet Home Alabama, which, shocker, I have never watched, but feels probably the most most fall of any other rom-com outside of When Harry Met Sally, which unfortunately is not on any streaming services, so that's why it's not mentioned here. But Sweet Home Alabama is one I'm definitely getting around to this year. It's, of course, about a young woman who, when she's ready to marry her big city fiance, goes back home to finalize her divorce from her high school sweetheart, and I believe falls back in love with him. I think that's the story, of course. It's a cutesy small town romance, and I'm definitely gonna get around to watching this one. And then for shows, guys, we've got a behemoth of things to get through here. So This Is Us, I've already talked about it, but it's also available on Hulu if you're looking for it. Sherlock, yes, I'm talking the Benedict Cumberbatch version, is on Hulu right now. Did not know this. Whenever I was trying to watch this in middle school, I just barely could get through these like 2-hour episodes, but if you want to watch it, it's on Hulu now. I've also heard really great things about The Artful Dodger, but I've got one of the most iconic fall shows that I just always find myself watching some portion of in fall is Scream Queens. Scream Queens is a Ryan Murphy series that I believe had 2 seasons. Because of the rise of Glenn Powell in this year, the year of our Lord 2024, I'm going to be getting all the way through Scream Queens just for him. This show is so hysterical for its time, clever, and most importantly, it's super, super, super campy. And there's a lot of things that I want to be able to quote directly from this series, and therefore that's why I would recommend it. I also think this is the best performance from Emma Roberts. I think she's absolutely incredible as Chanel. Then we've got a classic, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I started watching last year thanks to my friend Bailey. Bailey, I love you. I haven't finished it yet because, to be completely honest, I get a little bit spooked watching the show by myself. So I need to watch it, I think, during the daytime and not think too much because the vampires are terrifying. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer is the show that set forth the path for all of the other teen supernatural shows that we have talked about today. If you like Vampire Diaries, if you like Pretty Little Liars to some extent, if you enjoy Teen Wolf, any of these things, Vampire Academy, give it up for Buffy and the fact that Buffy laid that path forth for every other thing that has come after it. Sarah Michelle Gellar is absolutely fabulous, and Buffy is a style icon. You cannot tell me otherwise, and I feel like the 90s fashion is so in right now. Like, there's so many things that Buffy wears that I'm just like, oh, I just want to buy that exact thing and wear it and hope I look as good as she does. She's not just like this outcast girl that like nobody likes. She's popular. She's a cheerleader. There's so much to her character that I think you could find something to relate to. Just, I can't recommend the show enough. The second you start watching it, you will understand why it is so beloved and critically acclaimed. Okay, you'll get it right away. And then one that has gotten a lot of attention lately, and I cannot blame it, Only Murders in the Building. For my cozy mystery people, this is the show for you. In case you've never watched it and never really gotten a good understanding of the plot, all is true crime enthusiasts that are made up of a trio of Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, and Martin Short. After a power outage in their building, they meet up and discover they all are huge fans of the same true crime podcast that is run by Tina Fey. Okay? It's beautiful. It's wonderful. The first season is exquisite and immaculate. I enjoyed the second season as well, and I am very behind and need to watch the third season because season 4 is coming out. This show has consistently been in the Emmy runnings for all of its actors and for the episode writings. I think there's something super cozy again about fall in New York. Please give it a watch whenever you get a chance. I love funny vampires, okay? Like, I love scary vampires like in Buffy, and I like sexy vampires like in Vampire Diaries, but I really love funny vampires, and that's where What We Do in the Shadows comes in. It's one of my absolute all-time favorite shows. This show is so clever. It is told through the perspective of a group of vampires that live together in Staten Island, New York, and they are the subjects of a documentary, but the show is told in that mockumentary office format. Give it a watch. And then 2 huge shows that I feel like I need to call out specific episodes. New Girl is not as firmly fall as Friends is for me, but they have several different Halloween and Thanksgiving episodes, which I'll have listed on the screen here for you, that I think are really enjoyable. And the quirky found familyness of these sitcom series really feels fall to me. And so I had to put New Girl in here because I've seen a couple people acting recently like it's this unheard of show that they've never watched. And so I need to be on the forefront of the campaign as somebody who's been watching this show since I was in middle school. I need to be on the forefront of the campaign to get more people to watch it, apparently. So please don't be dumb. Give New Girl a watch. Modern Family is the one show that almost every single season, I believe, with the exception of maybe 3 seasons, has a Halloween episode. But when you consider how long Modern Family ran for, 7 Halloween episodes that are strictly Halloween themed because Claire, the mom, loves Halloween. It's her favorite holiday. So we've got those, which again are listed on the screen right now. Give them a watch. Bringing Us Home is Disney Plus. As I was doing this research, Disney Plus to me has the most classic Halloween movies. Those are things like Hocus Pocus 1 and 2, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Haunted Mansion. We've got an original and we've got a reboot. And then we've got Halloween Town, all of that franchise, Twitches 1 and 2. There's a lot of classic Disney movies, including some of Tim Burton's claymation work, that all lives on Disney Plus. So I think there's a lot here to really enjoy and appreciate, specifically for the timing of Halloween. Now we're gonna get into our movie shorts and specials, and we've kind of got a mix here. So not everything here is a full-length movie, but there's some really great specials and one specific short film that I really want you to pay attention to. That short film is Growing Fangs. What did I say before? I love funny vampires, okay? Growing Fangs follows a teenage girl who is half human, half vampire, and she's kind of stuck between being an outsider at her human school as well as being an outsider at her monster school. And it is so funny. The actress that plays the vampire, I believe, was also in episodes of What We Do in the Shadows. She's so funny, so charming, and I really love this little short film. So go ahead and give it a watch. Then for our specials, we've got the Toy Story of Terror. This was a little ABC Family Halloween special that came out. I was probably in middle school or early high school when this happened, and I just remember such a fond memory of coming home on a fall day, you know, when you can leave the back door open because you're not like letting any humidity or bugs in, but you can hear the leaves whistling outside. And I sat down with homemade chocolate chip cookies and watched this special on my couch of my childhood home, and I just have such a fond memory. If you want a little Halloween special, give this a go. And then we've also got Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night is specifically, it came out around Halloween. It was specifically this never before done thing that Marvel had done, and I feel like they haven't utilized this Marvel Studios presentation banner in a while, and I'm kind of disappointed that they haven't. But I think Werewolf by Night is a really fun story. I've been disappointed that it hasn't connected to anything else seemingly in the MCU thus far, other than little maybe trivial Easter eggs, but I really enjoy it. Got incredible music and really fun. Really great watch. Visually stunning. And then for my Swifties, I've got Folklore: The Long Pond Sessions. This is just a little, like, I don't want to say concert film because it's obviously not the Eras Tour movie, but it's just Taylor talking about all of the songs on Folklore and playing them acoustically with Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff. And then we've got a couple of really great movies that are some of my personal favorites of all time, starting with The Princess Bride. This one I love so dearly, and the reason that I associate it with fall is because it's got the fantasy element. Again, this one for My Lady Jane fans or for people who love The Princess Bride, this is a reason to watch My Lady Jane. They combine that fantasy medieval historical kingdom element. It's this fantasy storybook love story. It's a bookended narrative where the story that is kind of the film of Wesley and Buttercup, our main two characters of the film, that is a story that's being told to us and to a young boy who's actually Fred Savage by his grandfather while he's sick in bed. And he's like dreading listening to his grandfather tell him this story. He's like, I just want to sleep. I want to play video games. It's funny. It's a little bit irreverent, but it's also so heartwarming and wholesome at the same time. Please give it a watch. And then we've also got Edward Scissorhands, which I think is the perfect example of like a modern fairy tale. It's iconic to me because it's got Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder in this Tim Burton-esque world. To me, it's kind of like a modern retelling of Frankenstein, but also Beauty and the Beast at the same time. I feel like this is a movie I shouldn't have to really explain the plot to because it's something I think you just have to watch for yourself. Please watch it if you've never. Also would make a great Halloween costume. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. And then for our shows, you'd be surprised that we have several. One of the shows that I think is so clearly fall inspires is Gravity Falls. It's about these two twins who go to live with their great uncle for, I think, the summer, and they live in the middle of nowhere, and all these kind of supernatural things start to happen, and they uncover this lore of this world that they live in called Gravity Falls. And I love this series so much. Growing up, once again, going back to middle school, this series is so fun. The writing is good. The animation is so cute. I definitely have to tell you to watch it. And then I've talked about this before. It's not explicitly fall, but it just feels so moody and rainy New York and kind of dark, and that's Daredevil. I love Daredevil. I love the character of Matt Murdock, and because Daredevil Born Again is coming next year, I feel like now is the time to rewatch Daredevil or watch it for the first time in case you never did because you dismissed the Netflix Marvel shows, as a lot of us did, but now they're becoming relevant. So let's catch up. Let's get up to speed, right? Another childhood favorite of mine was Wizards of Waverly Place. Do I need to say more? But I also am recommending that you rewatch Wizards of Waverly Place, assuming that you probably did watch it growing up. The revival of Wizards of Waverly Place, called Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, is coming, I believe, in October. This just feels like such a special place to see Selena Gomez and David Henry return to this series, and I hope that there's a lot of other cameos from the original cast. I'm really excited about this. Speaking of nostalgia, that is not always the best, for me at least, but I do have a soft spot in my heart for this show, and that's Once Upon a Time. I always refer to Once Upon a Time as my toxic ex. I had some great times with the show, but I also hated certain things that happened in the show that repeatedly pissed me off, that were things that I just had to call it quits with the show. I have rewatched this show at least 4 to 5 times for the first several seasons, but I've never gotten past certain points. Each time I've kind of rewatched it to refresh myself on the show, I find myself getting a few episodes forward from where I was and then fizzling out on the show. Is the solution to this to just start where I last left off and rewatch earlier episodes if I really need to? Yes. But if you're someone that is a fan of the kind of Disney classic animated movies but want to see them come to life in live action in a kind of alternate way, there you go. It's in this story. There is a lot to love about this show, and it all takes place in this cozy Maine town that I think you will love. And then, for my fellow Marvel fans, Loki, try to tell me that show in the TVA doesn't feel a little bit fall. Okay, this one is a very weak conclusion, but I had to. And then, of course, I had to add WandaVision. There's specifically a Halloween episode of WandaVision, which I love the title, All New Halloween Spooktacular. It's episode 6. So you could definitely check that one out. But Agatha All Along is finally coming to Disney Plus this September 18th. Maybe refresh yourself on WandaVision to know why Agatha needs to take revenge and why revenge is such a witch. That is everything. I think I've been recording for an hour, but that is every title that I could come up with, movie, show, special, across all of the different major streaming platforms. I know I didn't touch on Paramount Plus. That's because I don't have Paramount Plus, so I'm so sorry. I couldn't really look into that. If you want further explanations on some of these titles, since I know I went kind of fast, I have a lot of older videos specifically detailing all of these shows and movies. A lot of them are repeated. Please go and check those out. I've got an entire fall playlist of recommendations, and please, of course, leave anything you think I missed down in the comments below so that other people can find their new favorite show or movie and that I can find new stuff to add to my to be watched list. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for sticking through this entire video. It means the world to me, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye, y'all.